Welcome. It's so great to see everybody here. Thank you so much for coming. This is part of our 11 a.m. Sunday Discovery Space series. The other day, somebody actually asked me, they were like, well, is this held in the Discovery Space, which is that little curtained room behind the screen? And I said, well, that kind of depends on how many people show up. But, you know, it's part of one of the many ways in which we're trying to continue to make all of the range of programming and activities and insight that we have to offer here at the American Shakespeare Center available to you. You're not required to come to every Discovery Space, but boy, it sure is nice to see so many people here today. And also to welcome anyone who is joining us on our Facebook live stream, which is going out to our 16,000 fans. So you could have stayed home in your pajamas and watched on your computer. But, you know, it's theater, it's live, it's part of what we do. We're at the tail end of our summer festival weekend celebrating the opening of Caesar and Cleopatra, which is the third part of our Roman trio brought to brilliant and effervescent life by our spectacular ensemble under the direction of the inimitable Eric Tucker of New York's Bedlam Theater Company. If you haven't seen it yet, I can guarantee you that not only you've never seen Shaw like this, you've probably never laughed so hard at a Shaw play, but also that it is a production whose invention, I think, belies a really serious intent to match Shaw's subversive, iconoclastic spirit, wit for wit. Plus, you really haven't lived until you've seen Caesar and the entire company jump into the harbor at Alexandria and swim across the Blackfriars stage. Caesar and Cleopatra joins Antony and Cleopatra, directed by Sharon Ott, and Julius Caesar, directed by me, completing our three great plays by two great authors that together tell one great story. As far as we know, no other theater has ever presented these three plays in rotating rep performed by a single company of actors. So this is potentially a once-in-a-lifetime theater experience that will be available until the shows close right after Thanksgiving. You can see them in any order. You can see them in order of chronology, which would be Caesar and Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, Antony and Cleopatra. You can see them in order of creation, which would be Julius Caesar, Antony and Cleopatra, and Caesar and Cleopatra. Or you can see them in alphabetical order. Antony and Cleopatra, Caesar and Cleopatra, and Julius Caesar. The point is that we want you to come and see them, and we want you to see all three. As Dr. Ralph has said, these three shows are not only a great example of what ASC now has on offer, but also a really clear glimpse, I hope, into the center's future. So if you haven't yet been to the Blackfriars Playhouse, now's the time. And if you haven't been in a few years, now's the time to come back. What's more, to me, they celebrate the power of repertory theater to tell stories in combination and the awesome talent of a company of 16 actors playing, I think, well over 100 characters and almost as many musical instruments. Music is about to play an even bigger role in our fall season as we add one more piece to our repertory puzzle and open a world premiere musical, ASC's first, in October. The Willard Suitcases by phenomenal composer-lyricist Julianne Wick Davis. Inspired by the evocative photographs by John Crispin taken of suitcases frozen in time and discovered in the attic of the abandoned Willard Asylum in upstate New York, Julianne's wonderful new musical imagines the lives that packed them. By turns touching, hysterical, chilling, and revealing, Julianne's musical will be performed in ASC's signature style with the cast accompanying themselves and each other, and feature one more special addition to the company, Broadway chanteuse Nancy Anderson. Nancy and the When Will We Find the Limits of His Talents, Chris Johnston, have agreed to share one of Julianne's songs at the end of this announcement. So if you make it all the way through to the end of 2020, there will be treats. ASC's marketing department, and you'll hear more of this from our director of marketing, Kathy, created a wonderfully pithy reduction of the story. So their tagline is, Willard Suitcases, we all have baggage, what's yours? Nancy and Julianne have a special history with Julianne's one-woman musical, The Pen, for which Nancy was nominated for a Drama Desk Award. And I will add that when Nancy and I first drove into Stanton past the former Western State Asylum, one of the first things we thought was what a great fit Willard Suitcases would be here, and how much it connects to the history of our town and community. A little pro tip, the photo shoot created by ASC's incredible graphic artist Lauren Parker, who was also manning a camera in the back today, was done in and around the Villages and with our friends and partners at the Blackburn Inn. And we got permission to go into some of the as yet undeveloped parts of the old institution and shoot a series of photos that are as fun and as evocative as John Crispin's images. If you're paying close attention to our work, and I hope you are, you may have noticed that we have another show running this summer, Midsummer '90. It has been delighting audiences of all ages and features our spectacular national touring company. This was new this summer, an opportunity to offer our work in a way appropriate length and mostly appropriate in content for the whole family. Listen, it's Shakespeare. I don't control this stuff. You know, it's Shakespeare and it's Topher Embry. It's a combination that is dangerous and lethal. I want to actually pivot off of that for one quick moment to just talk about the role that younger audiences and particularly student audiences play here at ASC, because it might be something that general audiences really aren't fully aware of. In 2019-20, ASC will have produced 53 student matinees to literally thousands of secondary school students from 6th grade and up. Students who come in from all corners of our state and region and often get way more than just a show, because they participate in workshops led by our artists and education team, and they come accompanied by faculty who have participated in our ongoing teacher training workshops. They usually and quite often stay. They enjoy the town of Stanton. They eat here and sometimes even stay the night here. And it's important for me because ASC is truly a center for education, and not just an education in Shakespeare, but an education with Shakespeare. Before the tour hits the road for the fall leg of their expedition, a journey that will take them in the fall at least to New York City, to the Alden in McLean, to Festival in Charleston, to Loyola in Baltimore, to State College in Pennsylvania, among many others. You can catch a sneak peek of their repertoire during the tour takeover the first week of September. In addition to Midsummer in both its full-length and 90-minute editions, which are getting closer and closer together the longer Midsummer '90 runs, the 1920 tour is going to feature Imogen, also known as Cymbeline, in a production that reclaims the title for Shakespeare's heroine rather than her father, the king, and is directed in a splendid new adaptation by ASC veteran actor and director Vanessa Morosco, who's here with us today. And also the Frank Galati adaptation of John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath, which has been really further adapted from its original cast of over 30 and a Broadway set that featured fire and water effects and a car by our marvelously talented director Jose Zayas, using only our ensemble of 11 talented actors and a few crates. ASC's national tour plays to audiences from Maine to Texas, traveling across 20 states and offering more than 50 performances to some 17,000 audience members, appearing in colleges, universities, performing arts centers, secondary schools, and small towns. We're always finding new places to perform and new partners to collaborate with, and 2019-20 will see us with our inaugural Leadership Consortium institutions, who are working with us in a multi-year, multilateral agreement that includes a tour stop on the road at their campus and education offerings here in Stanton. The Leadership Consortium takes ASC's integration of page and stage to a whole new level, making our unique Blackfriars Playhouse a kind of virtual part of our partner schools' campus and curriculum. It's my pleasure to reintroduce the first two members of this group, Washington and Lee University and Sewanee, the University of the South, both of which have entered into 3-year agreements to partner with us, producing the tour and creating new education opportunities at all levels. I do love delayed gratification, but I do think you really do want to hear about 2020. So it's time to talk a little bit about it. In 2019, most of you know this, but we kind of had to build a little bit of a bridge between the seasons that had been programmed before I got here and my programming, which really began with this summer-fall. That's why in February, we only announced as far as this December. And I know that actually created some bumps in the subscription process for marketing and others. And I just want to thank all of you as subscribers and patrons and friends for bearing with us while we kind of ironed this out. There was, believe it or not, actually a method to the madness. And that we were announcing 2019 as a half year so that we could realign and announce 2020 as a whole one. Every ASC calendar year is really made up of, well, I was going to say 3, but you can see there are 5 seasons there. And each season at American Shakespeare Center has its own distinct troupe of actors and artists, and each its own aesthetic vocabulary, while remaining true to ASC's commitment to exploring dramatic work through Shakespearean performance conditions and embracing shared light as an essential component in creating a sense of community between actors and between audience and audience. We're going to start calendarly with winter. Winter is the actor's renaissance. It is our deepest dive into the early modern era, when we bring Elizabethan theater-making practices into the rehearsal hall and get rid of directors in their entirety, and collaborate with our veteran actors as an ensemble. It's the season that led Washington Post theater critic Peter Marks to declare, "I arrived a skeptic and I left a believer." So this year, we're going to start with a perennial Shakespeare favorite, Much Ado About Nothing, that will be our lead-off batter. We're going to be continuing our journey into Henry IV, Part 2, which Ralph has told me, and I love this, is Shakespeare's most eloquent treatise on aging. We're going to go back in time to Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher's A King and No King, not just back in time to its inception in 1611, but also to its first appearance on our stage, where it was an audience favorite in our very first Wren season. And we're going to do something we've never done before in the context of the Wren season, and that is revive Henry IV Part 1 from last year and pair it with Henry IV Part 2 so that you can see them together as a single play. And you know, it's interesting thinking about our Blackfriars keynote speakers and repertory, and how the Renaissance is really a laboratory for exploring these performance conditions in real time, because it is an actual experiment that we have always wanted to try, because we know that Shakespeare's company was constantly reviving work. So what does that look like? How does that work, especially in a land with no directors? And then we will complete the Wren season with a scripts barely in hand, so-called Wren run of the somewhat rarely produced, although widely regarded as the best Jacobean comedy. It's a dubious distinction. A Chaste Maid in Cheapside by Thomas Middleton. As with the past years, pay close attention to some of our identified weekends. Renaissance weekend will be a time when you can see absolutely everything we have on offer. So too, almost everything we have on offer in the Wren season opening weekend and most of the weekends in between. I'm only going to hint at some of the casting, but I'll tell you that for sure Brandon Carter will be reprising and continuing his incredible portrait as Hal. John Harrell will be back as the fat knight, aging Falstaff. John has been aging in place in preparation for that. And David Lewis will return with his incredibly deep and deepening portrait of King Henry. Also in the company, among others, will be Chris Johnston, Zoe Spies, Ron Melendez, and we will see the very welcome return of Jessica Williams and Meg Rogers, who will play the pair of warring lovers in Much Ado About Nothing. As with everything in the Wren season, you gotta see it to believe it. Spring is going to bring the tour home for the tour Homecoming. So we will be returning with now the road-tested, battle-weary veteran scars of America on them. I just actually heard that Thomas Coppola, our stage manager and road manager, has a phrase for the tour, calls it Panera Across America. So I'm hoping that will inspire some future sponsorship opportunities for us. So that will, of course, be A Midsummer Night's Dream in both its 90-minute and its full-length incarnations, Imogen, The Grapes of Wrath, and we'll be adding a Shakespeare New Contemporary title, The Premiere of the Defamation of Cicely Lee, written in conversation with Shakespeare's Cymbeline. Imogen. As you all know, this is a highly competitive. The S&Cs are selected from among about 200 plays after a many-layered process of review, and it's all done blind. So you can imagine our actually overwhelming delight when we discovered that the play we had selected was an author that ASC audiences already know and love, and that is Emma Whipday, who basically was kind of embodying the S&C program before it existed with her shows, including Shakespeare's Sister, Emma, and Sense and Sensibility. The pitch for Defamation of Cicely Lee is it's 1611, and Shakespeare's latest play, still called Cymbeline, has traveled from London to the north of England. Soon scandal rocks Corbridge as maidservant Cicely Lee is accused of committing adultery with her former master. What is the truth of it, and will Cicely's voice be heard? The Defamation of Cicely Lee puts Cymbeline in conversation with contemporary issues and asks what we inherit from the past and how telling our stories can create a more equal future. In what I think is one of the beautiful ironies, Vanessa's production of Shakespeare's Imogen is set in a more or less contemporary world, and Emma's response piece is set in 1611. Emma, who's based in England, will be with us. She's an academic as well as an author and is marvelously articulate, so I will let her speak for herself. She wrote, "Engaging with Cymbeline allowed me to imagine myself back into Jacobean England, where a woman's reputation could be destroyed by a single word. It seems to me that the questions Shakespeare is asking in Cymbeline are the same questions we're asking today." That's a play that we will be doing a special sneak peek of in a reading on January 19th here on the Blackfriars stage, right as we embark on the Wren season and before the tour heads off on their spring. And then it's time for summer, our marquee festival season. So if the summer of 2019 saw us in Rome, then summer 2020 will find us in Venice with Shakespeare's Othello, his Merchant of Venice, and Ben Jonson's viciously awesome satiric masterpiece, Volpone. Between the three, we'll explore the politics of jealousy and a microscopic dissection of evil in Othello, the politics of social exclusion in Merchant of Venice, and the politics of greed in Volpone. It's a shame that by summer 2020, likely none of those themes will have contemporary relevance. But we will use it as an opportunity to look back and reflect on from whence we came. Next year's tour will get itself on the boards in the summer season, much as this year's has done, with another offering fit for the whole family, which will be a hour-and-a-half-long adaptation of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night that we're going to call Twelfth Night 90, arriving on Wednesdays at 7 and Saturday mornings at 10:30 in July. And we'll continue what this year was a really successful partnership with our friends at the Heifetz Institute to bring their Tuesday evening concerts onto this stage. It was a remarkable and beautiful showcase that I was saying to some friends the other night, literally to me is helping tune the wood in this room. And if you haven't had a chance, I would encourage you to sit in the balcony when a cello plays at center stage and feel the vibrations coming through the floor and into your feet. We're going to further develop that partnership because Heifetz is continuing a new program it started this year with its Baroque Opera Initiative, and next year that's going to expand and will feature a concert staging of Purcell's Dido and Aeneas, which we will do on this stage. The fall repertory will see the addition of our second Shakespeare New Contemporary winner, and the first time that we'll be producing an S&C in the summer-fall position, playwright Anchuli Felicia King's brilliant Kean. Written in conversation with Othello and set improbably at an academic conference of Shakespearean scholars, Kean tells the story of the lone African-American PhD candidate Tyler and his thesis on Ira Aldridge, the first black man to play Othello. Into this mix comes Kai, a Japanese musicologist with an obscure paper, and for her, it's love at first sight with Tyler. Each night, while Tyler dreams of Ira, Kai dreams of Tyler, and gradually their dreams and reality start to merge. But Tyler, like Ira and Othello before him, cannot perceive the inevitable betrayal of a close ally. It's a heartfelt ode to always being a second-class genius of color. Kean is an incredible cocktail of early career academia, Shakespeare's Othello, Ira Aldridge, and the power of American pop music. Anchuli Felicia King, AFK, as she is known, which is helpful, is a writer whose career is already blowing up in amazing ways. By the time she completed her MFA in playwriting at Columbia, which was last spring, this Thai-Australian global citizen was seeing her first play, White Pearl, debut at London's fabled Royal Court, a theater that has been home to countless amazing world premieres, including this last season's Tony Award winner, The Ferryman. White Pearl will make its American debut at DC's Studio Theater this coming November, and we'll be welcoming AFK for a workshop on Kean then in preparation for her debut with us in September-October of 2020. AFK says, Kean is my way of aligning scholarship around Othello with its performance history while simultaneously exploring the compromises and imposter syndrome so often experienced by people of color when they enter historically white spaces. It's my love letter to all the geniuses of color, past and present, whose contributions to Western culture have gone unrecognized. We're going to have one more opportunity to sneak peek it that Dr. Ralph alluded to, and that is on the Saturday night of the after the banquet that concludes the Blackfriars Conference. We're going to do a reading of Kean with real, honest-to-God Shakespearean academics playing Shakespearean academics. I've pointed out that it is after the banquet, so if you're a fan of drunk Shakespeare, this is your time. We're also going to do, this is a play that's already attracting significant interest, and you may or may not know that in this last year, ASC has joined the National New Play Network, and we're hoping very much that we'll continue to find some partners to produce this wonderful play in a rolling world premiere format. But we're already going to partner with the Red Bull Theater Company up in New York to do a reading as part of their really highly celebrated Revelation reading series in May of 2020. After the winter, the spring, the summer, and the fall, it's time for the holiday season, which in 2020 will see the return of the beloved holiday tradition, the Christmas Carol. I skipped that for 2019 because you can catch A Christmas Carol, the 2019 edition, beginning in December. It will feature our wonderful touring company and I believe also the return of Topher as the ghost of Christmas Present, which is incredibly helpful because we can reuse the costumes and the photographs. It will, holiday season will also bring a return engagement for that holiday masterpiece, Every Christmas Story Ever Told. Here's a little pro tip on that. I'm calling it Every Christmas Story Ever Told Endgame because it's probably going to be your last chance to see Every Christmas Story Ever Told. It's a third at bat. It's going to bring together a wonderful cast with Chris Johnston, Meg Rogers, and Ron Roman Melendez attempting to tell you everything you ever wanted to know about Christmas and then some in a mere 3.5 hours.
Thank you. So, as loyal patrons, you have early access to your preferred seasons, shows, and seats. This all begins now, right here today. We are ready to go. So, the next step towards 2020 is to choose a subscription that best suits you and maximizes your opportunity to see the shows in all of these seasons that we will be hosting. The coming artistic year is going to include the must-see lineup that you just heard about, but it's also going to include the opportunity to have must-have perks. There are some new ones that we're adding to our package this year. They're going to include things like the option to purchase holiday season tickets at a discount, subscriber gifts, complimentary tickets to our Ren Run productions, exclusive events like this morning's, and much, much more. So, as a returning subscriber, there are going to be 2 subscription formats that you can engage with in the coming year. We will have a new program called Chart Your Course. We have subscriptions ready for sale today that involve this programming, and we'll walk you through that this morning. In addition, we will also have renewals as is. We know that some of you like the flexibility of your flex passes, and we're ready to proceed with those in 2020 so that you can engage with this in the same format that you always have. So, speaking of our 2020 subscriptions, this is what it looks like. We are passing out programs right now that will give you a little bit more information about this. You can see the full layout of options. All of the different seating sections will have various pricing structures, so you will want to familiarize yourself with this new program. This is an opportunity for us to have various stages in increments. So, I'm glad that you're all sitting there wondering, what is a Chart Your Course subscription? Because I'm here to tell you that it is this opportunity to see whichever size package you'd like under generous subscriber discounts, and it's going to touch on everyone at their level. Whether you're sold out on Shakespeare or whether you'd like to try everything new, we've got something for everyone. So, let us help you navigate your way through 2020 with some of the following options. If you choose the Sensational 6, we have the Shakespeare 6-pack. No, this is not the 6-pack on the actors that we see on stage. This is the combination of the Shakespeare titles that we would recommend for a Shakespeare 6-pack. You get to see 6 titles, 2 in Actors Renaissance, 2 in the Spring Homecoming, and 2 in Summer Fall. And then in addition to this, as we've discussed before, our destination weekends allow you to see these back to back so that you can experience the joy of being here for a full weekend at the ASC and take advantage of our other programming, especially as a subscriber, including the perks of Dr. Ralph Presents and our Discovery Space time slots. Our next pack that we recommend choosing from is the pairings. It's like peanut butter and jelly, right? Some things are good on their own, but when you pair them, some things are best in combination. Each season that we have this year plays host to one of these perfect pairings that you won't want to miss. In Renaissance season, we'll have the 2 Henrys, which will speak to each other. But then in spring and spring and fall, we will have the S&C titles that you will be able to pair with our Shakespeare. Whether you like Shakespeare's titles, Shakespeare's new contemporaries, American classic, early modern, we've got a little bit of everything. So feel free to combine them in whichever way makes sense. Whether it's tragedy, comedy, or history, we'll find something that tickles your fancy. If you have questions about titles that you're unfamiliar with, that's what we're here for. We'll help you find the best way to make use of these combination packages. We'd love to assist you in charting your course for 2020. And so, as a conclusion, at the end of Discovery Space today, you're going to be able to swing by our subscriber table out in the lobby, and we will be happy to answer any of your questions. We'd like for you to meet some of our staff who will be working behind the scenes to make this all possible for you. And we'll be able to take your renewal today to help you on this exciting artistic escape in 2020. So, thank you.
So I'm delighted to welcome Nancy Anderson and Chris Johnston singing What Will I Wear from Julianne Wick Davis's the Willard Suitcases.
100 steps from my room is a graveyard, crowded with epitaphs and stones. Here 6 feet above their head, I think about the dead as they lie in clothes picked out by those who love them most. Clothes they want them wearing so they can come back as a ghost. 100 steps from my room is a gathering of men in 3-piece suits and wingtip shoes, and women in their Sunday frocks, all closed up inside a box, in perfect clothes arranged with fabric neatly pressed, and hands gently folded across their silent breasts. I wonder how it feels. Is there eternal rest in scratchy clothes and pitchy heels? Would they prefer their old dungarees or bathrobes instead of these garments kept by the living when they think the dead don't care? But if we left the way we came, we'd all lay it there. A 100 steps from my bed is a day room, crowded with people dressed the same. We lost our choices long ago to dress ourselves from head to toe in favorite clothes we chose with our last sober thought. Clothes we gently folded in the suitcase we brought.